Happy Monday, guys. I do hope that your week is going to get off to a good start, whether you're going to work or getting off work, if you're at the Tubi. And I wanted to share with you some of the things that I learned over the weekend. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Cassie and I were at a homeschooling convention in Columbus. I think it's called Great Homeschool Conferences or something like that. And we just are finishing up our first year of homeschool, so we have a lot to learn. We've obviously, with anything, as you start it, you see your weaknesses and you see the things that you maybe were doing right, but I think more than anything, we are seeing the things we weren't doing well, which is good. It's helpful. That hopefully we can improve, and next year will be even better. But this conference had a couple speakers that, oddly enough, wasn't really about homeschooling in particular. And a lot of the themes you'll hear from that, at least that conference, but even some modern day homeschooling families, is there's kind of a like a lot of the emphasis is on developing the person. So your students developing who they are more than just like what facts they have in their brain. So actually one of the classes that we went to, or seminars, whatever you want to call it, was about testing. And obviously if you still have kids in school, you know a lot about standardized testing that the schools do. And actually when our kid was still in public school, the program that they used was called iReady, and we would get reports every so often. I don't remember if it was like quarterly or by semester. I don't remember, but basically she would log in, do all of her testing on iReady, and then we would get a report of how well she has either progressed or regressed throughout the year. And there was actually times where she regressed. Her scores actually got lower throughout the year, which is disheartening because you're like, man, what's going on? So the emphasis on a lot of things that we learned was more about developing the person and their reasoning skills, and that was more important than like how much they can memorize. And I seem to agree with that, because let's be honest, a lot of the stuff that we learn in school isn't really stuff that we use out of school, like the facts and the data. But if we learn how to learn, if we learn to enjoy to learn, if our reasoning skills are strong, then we can learn anything. So no matter what trade or career option we end up trying, that's good. It's good to have the brain skills to do it, not just memorize things. Anyway, to get off that topic, all right, I listened to three main speakers that weren't really homeschool related. One was a guy named John Lovell, and he is a very well-known speaker, but also a author, and he wrote the book Warrior Poet. And it's biblical stories and principles that have been reframed to be more evangelistic. And what that means is the book caters to a non-Christian audience while still keeping the roots deep in Scripture. And the inspiration for Warrior Poet came from David. So David being one of the greatest warriors in all of Scripture. I mean, it says that he had tens of thousands that in battle he defeated. And then we also know him as the shepherd, and he would defend his flock, with his bare hands, killing the predators. But then we also see a side of David who was the poet. He kind of had a softer side to him by writing poetry, singing songs. So that's the inspiration behind Warrior Poet. And then the next speaker was Nick Freitas. I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but he serves in the House of Representatives. I think it's Tennessee, but I could be wrong. But he is also well known for his YouTube channel. And it's basically, I don't know if you want to call it just conservative, like he is conservative politically, but also kind of just getting back to the biblical structure of society, specifically on the topic of men, which is part of the reason I wanted to go. And it was inspiring to me, or even challenging to me, to continue and even pursue more discipling men. Like, nothing against the ladies. Like, that's obviously ladies have their role and important place and abilities and skills that we men just do not possess. Like, we are wholly inadequate to be moms. I think the quote goes something like, the world's best dad is a horrific mother, and the world's best mother is a horrific dad. Like, we are totally separate, equal in value, but to be honest with you, a lot of ministries kind of neglect the men. And maybe you're attending our church and you're like, that makes no sense. So the emphasis being more about developing the whole person, not just being able to teach them how to memorize and regurgitate facts, but also for ministry in particular, to spend some time in helping men understand God's design for them, and also how to step into that. Like, what steps can they take? And obviously, there's different ways of going about that as far as ministry philosophy and how do you reach more men, because it can be abused and done poorly as well. I think we see that at some of these men conferences that, man, they're just wild. But for me, I guess to kind of tell you where my head's at, we need more strong men in the church. And I think our church does pretty well at that. But in the church, there are just a lot of weak men. Physically weak, spiritually weak, emotionally weak, just weak in a lot of areas. But we need men who are strong. That we need stronger men who know their relationship to God the Father, that we are truly called sons of God. We've been set free from the bondage of sin. We've been set free from family sins. We've been set free wholly to live for our King Jesus. And I do think that there's something to be said about the physical part too. You could find a quote of mine that partially regret, not completely, but I said, if you are I actually don't remember my exact quote. If you are a physically jacked, ripped guy, then you're probably not a good dad. I partially regret that, because in my mind, I was thinking like the kind of guy who has to go to the gym 2 to 3 times a day. You know, they got to get their cardio in the morning or evening, and got to get their lifting in the morning or evening. And, you know, all their day is planned around their meals, and they're traveling to go to competitions, and they're just not home. That's kind of what I had in mind, and I still agree with that. The sun is blinding me. But it doesn't mean you have to be sloppy. It doesn't mean that you should never be physically active. That's kind of the two extremes. I do believe there's a good balance in there somewhere, where being physically active is good to be able to keep up with your kids, to be able to be a threat in case there is someone wanting to do harm to your family, that you are physically able to defend them. So I think that's probably the balance, somewhere in between. And I would love to, our church had the reputation of having a great balance of people, of men in particular, who are strong in their faith, that they know who they are. They know that they are sons of God, and that they know that they've been set free. So strong spiritually, and also strong emotionally, that we're not still holding on to wounds from our childhood, and that we are able to be set free from that and love freely our family and others and serve other people. And we're not doing it from a place of wounding that, hey, I need to prove someone wrong or something, but we're doing it from a place of like, man, God has loved me, he has set me free, he's taken care of me, and I'm going to serve and love other people. But then I think we need to be strong physically too. I think there is some importance to that. So I would love for our church to have well-rounded men who are able to find their place in this world, their God-given roles, and help balance out the families, help balance out the church and society. I think that when men get stronger, society gets better. And that should start locally, maybe in an individual church, in our city, our county. But I think it does start with the men. So that's kind of what I was learning about over the weekend. Obviously, I enjoy having a little bit of a respite and time away to grow myself. And man, we had Awana Sunday yesterday. And it's so good to see other people able to lead. Obviously, we have leaders in Awana, we have volunteers, but it's such a blessing to be able to sit back and not be in charge of everything. And I don't mean that in a way of being slothful or lazy. I mean it in a way that it's actually my aspiration that our church would operate in a way that if I was to suddenly be gone, there wouldn't be a blip. Just keep on going. Like that, if James isn't here, we're fine. That's my aspiration. And I think it's a good one. I think that's something to aspire to. That way everything doesn't revolve around me, and then if I'm gone or if I leave, everything comes crashing down and has to be rebuilt again. I would consider that a failure on my end. So hope you have a great day, have a good Monday, and we'll see you soon.